Or that
It's
dibs on the.
JavaScript expressions, just so we know, is something everybody could probably focus on and learn a little bit. So this is going to be something that if you're not in JavaScript yet, don't stress about like memorizing this entire thing or practicing it, but it might be worth paying attention to start kind of building this mental map of what language features are. And in this case, the language feature we're going to be discussing in general is expressions. Okay. So today we're going to talk about JavaScript expressions. Or maybe I'll make it a little bit more generic first, and we'll just talk about expressions in general. So I'm going to go to Excalidraw. And by the way, I don't know if y'all noticed, but I hit the record button before starting this lesson. And me hitting the record button allows me to record in such a way that I can go to this in-class channel and dump these videos. Whoa, I got the hiccups in here after class. Okay, sweet. So let's start with some brain dumping. What is an expression? Let's see if we can get let's see if we get some answers to this. It could be like if you've taken an algebra course, what is an expression in algebra? That's fine too. But in general, what's an expression? I want some audience participation here. I'm calling y'all the audience, but you're my class, I guess. Audience might be a little weird.
Anything that you can console log is considered an expression.
I love that. I love that definition. Anything you can console log is an expression. Okay. I love
An
that.
expression is code.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we could say an expression is code. That is technically true. We've got a rectangle there, but it's not quite a square, if that makes sense. So in other words, not all code is an expression, but in JavaScript, every expression is code, if that makes sense. What else we got?
I'd say anything that creates a usable value, which means that you can console log a value. I mean, you can reuse.
Can I change one word in there?
Yeah.
Instead of creates, I'm going to swap out creates with represents.
Yep.
Usable value. I love that. I think that might be my favorite definition so far. Although I do really like this one too. Both these are tied probably, but I really like those. Okay, what else we got? All right, let's dive into it then. So I say all these are fair game. Code is maybe a little bit misleading because there's a lot of things that are code that aren't necessarily an expression. Okay. But in general, an expression is something you could log for sure. That's like how you know if it is an expression. Try logging it. If you can log it, it's an expression. If it throws an error when you try to log it, it's not an expression. That's one thing. Anything that represents, well, that's not necessarily true the way I just phrased that. You could have something that is an expression that throws an error, but not like, it's not like console log can't read it. It's just, anyways, that's a little confusing. Anything that represents a usable value, I love this one. That's a really good one. So let's play around with it. We're going to go to, just open up my dev tools and we're going to look at this part down here. This is our console. This is where I write JavaScript, run JavaScript, do all that juicy stuff. And for the newbies in here, the way I was able to open this panel here in Google Chrome was by pressing F12. If you're on a Mac, you have to hold down the FN key and then press F12. Okay. Anyways, what is an expression? Well, anything that we can console log. So if I do console.log, hello, and it logs something and doesn't throw an error here, guess what? That's an expression, right? So the value of this expression is the string hello. That's it. Super simple. In other words, if I were to highlight everything inside of that console log, it all ultimately equals some, I'm going to use Alex's terminology here, some usable value. And in this case, that usable value is the word hello. Okay. What are some other examples of expressions in JavaScript? In fact, I'm just going to ask you, is it an expression? If I write true in here, is it an expression?
Yes.
True. True is totally an expression. If I console.log true, I get the value true. True represents a value in JavaScript. What about 8 divided by 3? Is that an expression? This whole thing,
Yes.
8 divided by 3. Absolutely. Because 8 divided by 3 simplifies to this value too. Right? And that's actually not a divided. That's a modulo. That's why it's not 8 divided by 3. It's actually 8 modulo 3, which is what's the remainder when you divide 8 by 3, which in this case is going to be 2 because 6, 2, whatever. Anyways, what's another good one? What if I say console.log? Here's a trippy one. Console.log. Is console.log an expression?
No.
Michael says no. Any dissenting opinions there? Console log is an expression. Why? Because I can log it. In JavaScript in particular, this is not the case with every language, but in JavaScript, all functions are also expressions. That's why, for example, when I call 123 dot find, I can pass in a callback here as an expression because it's an expression. So in other words, I can go in here and say, number finder is going to take in n and return n equals 2. Okay. And now in here, I'm going to reference number finder. Why can I do that? Because in JavaScript, our function definitions themselves are expressions. Now, if that one is a little bit tricky, don't stress too much about it right now. But this should actually have, let me do this. 1, 2, 3 dot find number finder. And you'll see that this is actually going to equal 2. Reading find. What? Did I not run that thing? Number finder, is that? Oh, that defined itself weird. Let's try refreshing the browser. We're going to say const num finder equals, we're going to take in n and poop out n equals 2. And then we're going to say 1, 2, 3 dot find num finder. Pew, and then we get the value 2. So all of this simplified to 2. So then let me ask this. Is all of this an expression?
It's a statement, which is like a subset of an expression.
Nope. It's an expression. It is an expression. It's an
So
expression because
what
all this
isn't
has
an
a value.
expression then?
What isn't an expression? Is that the
Is
question?
Yeah.
it
Okay, let's try this. Console.log. Here, I'll write a for loop first before I try to log it. I'm going to say for, that's a great question, by the way. What isn't an expression? We're going to say let I equal 0. I is less than 100. I plus plus. And in here, we are going to console.log I. Okay? And I just looped through 100 numbers and printed all of them. What I'm going to do is copy this for loop and try to log this for loop. Console.log. Boom. Let's log my for loop. All right. Who thinks that they know what we're going to log here? Who wants to take a guess?
Is
I'll
it the
call 'em.
numbers that it pushed out, or
Who's saying that? I just can't see that. Let me fix
David
mine.
Norman?
David, nope. It is not the numbers that it pushed out. Anybody else want to take a guess?
0 through 100?
Nope. Not 0 through 100.
Just 0?
Nope. Not 0. I'll give you a hint. A for loop is not an expression. And the definition that I like of an
Oh.
expression is anything that you can console log. So if it's not an expression, we can't even console log it. What do we think we're going to get back in our terminal when I do enter this?
Defined.
Nope.
A function.
It explodes. It says that's not even valid JavaScript, bro. What the fuck are you trying to do? That's what it says. It says I can't even do that. That's not a value. That's a series of things to do. That's not a value, right? So a for loop is not an expression. Anybody else want to take guesses on things that are not expressions? We got a for loop. There's probably
Variable
And also-
declarations.
If I were to kind of expand on what you just said, would that mean that an expression, if I were to say what an expression isn't, it's rather processes, but what it is the value that's put into that process.
Yeah, so an expression always boils down to a value. A statement is like telling your computer to do something. So I think, we can look up the programming definition of statement. In computer programming, a statement is a syntactic unit of imperative programming language that expresses some action to be carried out. So I'm not actually sure that I could correctly identify which pieces of code are statements and not statements, but for as far as expressions, it's super easy to do. But like, for example, this for loop, it's a series of steps that you're supposed to take. A for loop just doesn't have a value. There's no value to a for loop. There's nothing like, it's not like, the value of this for loop is 5. That's just not how for loops work. It's just not. While loops don't have values. If statements don't have values. Case statements don't have values. A lot of these things, they just don't have values. And if I try to log its value, it's like dumping in crap into JavaScript. Like it doesn't even know how to interpret it.
Hey,
So
John,
Yep.
so essentially like a function that doesn't have a return to it would actually qualify as just that, it doesn't have a value at the end of it. So it's kind of like the same thing.
Not quite, but I'm glad that you're making that mistake now so we can hammer in on this, okay? What is the value of a function that doesn't return anything? If
Just
I
a
invoke
function.
it.
Void.
If I invoke it, well, no, if I don't invoke it, the value of it is a function definition. So let's try this. Function, say hello. And then in here, we're just going to console.log hello. And this is a really important concept. If I were to console.log say hello and not invoke it, what would I log out?
Undefined.
Nope. If I don't invoke it.
No.
Nope. If I console.log say hello,
It's a function.
it's a function. It's the definition of that function. It's saying, hey, by the way, why don't you go ahead and log out this set of instructions we created, right? Because I didn't tell that set of instructions to execute, right? It just is the definition of that function. Okay, but what if I console.log say hello invoked? And I didn't return anything in this function. What's the value of this expression?
Void
Very close.
or null.
Very close. Void is not a
Undefined.
thing in JavaScript. Void is a thing in TypeScript. It's not a thing in JavaScript. Undefined. Every function that returns nothing returns the value undefined. So actually, say hello invoked. This is absolutely an expression. Why? Because it simplifies to the value undefined. Undefined is a valid value in JavaScript. It is a valid expression. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So now I want to just go back and just because we just made that error. So I want to show you again what happens if we plug in something that's not an expression. We don't get the value undefined. We get an explosion. It says, what the fuck are you trying to do, homie? It explodes. It says that's not even valid JavaScript. You can't log a for loop. What are you doing? Whereas when we logged the value of a function that returned undefined, we got undefined. When we logged the value of a function without invoking it, we just got that function definition. What about this? 3 and 4. 33 and 4, whatever. Is that an expression?
Yes,
Why?
because that returns a value of 4.
Doesn't return a value 4,
Well-
it is a value 4,
Is a value of 4.
right? Yeah, exactly. It just equals the value 4. What is 54 minus 6 plus 7 modulo 2? 49, apparently. I didn't do that in my head. I'm not that smart, okay? But yeah, anything that has a value is an expression. It's that simple. And as stupid as this seems, I distinctly remember when I was learning React, fucking up on this so hard that I thought React was really difficult. Once it kind of clicked that, oh, that's what a JavaScript expression is, it wasn't hard anymore. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like most people, when they get to React, what they'll try to do is write a for loop in the middle of the HTML. And it's like, nope, you can't do that because it's not an expression, because a for loop's not an expression. By the way, any idea on how you could write a for loop inside of the HTML part of React? And
Put it
might
inside
work?
of a function.
Oh shit. Yes, that is absolutely correct. You could take a for loop, put it inside of a function, and then invoke that function, and then that's totally valid. What do I mean by that? I'll show you. Let's go ahead and just npm create v.latest. Actually, I'm gonna do bun. Bun create v.latest. And we're gonna do expression stuff. React, TypeScript. Open up my expression stuff. Ba-boom. Get rid of this crap. Bye-bye. That was my evil laugh voice. And then in here, we're just going to go ahead, install. And we are going to go to the app.tsx. And we're going to do items. We're going to say my items is item 1, item 2, item 3, right? If I go here, let's just dump them right in the center. So we'll do an ordered list, and then in here we'll do p tags or something. Okay, we'll do LIs. So now what I could do, if I wanted to, what I can't do is just write a for loop. I can't do for let I equal 0. I is less than items dot length I plus plus. We're going to console.log I. Let's see if that works. Well, when I save it, it won't even run the compiler because it's not valid. So it's not even really letting me save it in a way that Vite will watch it, because Vite's saying, hey, it's broken. That's not even valid JavaScript. I'm not going to try to run that. Okay. Remember when we said we could wrap it in a function? Let's do that. Open the function, close the function, boom. And now it's pissed off for other reasons, but not because it's not an expression. It's mad because I need to wrap this like this. Okay. And guess what? Now, even though we're not going to get shit on our page, well, we are technically rendering undefined here, and React knows what to do with it. Okay? It's not the correct type signature, but I bet you if I change this to JSX, I'd be a lot happier. I'm not saying that we should, but see how it's not screaming at me? It's because it's technically returning an expression. Now, if I were to get rid of this and just do the for loop, comment out that, comment out that. Now it's like, hey, what the hell? That's not it says expression expected. The second I take that for loop and I put it inside of a function, now I could technically use it. So for example, I could do, we'll say for let item of items, and let me change this back to TSX. It should be TSX. We'll say for let item of items. We could console.log that item or whatever. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say you know, we'll make a LIs, and we'll say that this is an array of anything. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to do LIs dot push, and we could push a LI with the item in there, and the key is the item. And then we could just return those LIs from here. And now it's hideous. It's terrible looking, but we have 3 items. Why? Because we took that for loop and we wrapped it in an expression. Let me ask you though, and this is the reason why I'm so gung-ho on expressions, particularly in a curriculum that's focused around React. Which looks better? This or this? Which do we think looks better? This code or this code? A or B?
A for sure. Well, the top level, the top.
Oh yeah, the
code
top.
on the
Yeah,
left side.
I did A on the bottom and B on the top, which was confusing. So, but yeah, I mean, this code is so much cleaner. This is why we teach the dot map, dot filter, all that stuff a little bit more aggressively than one might expect, is because it's super important in React. Having clean React code, you kind of need to know how to map over stuff. You kind of need to know how to filter stuff. And that's one of the really cool parts about these array applicatives in general, is that they allow you to create an expression rather than a for loop. I think it's one of the beautiful parts about those. Anyways, that's about it for JavaScript expressions.